Good morning to those joining us from the Philippines, and good afternoon to those here in the United States and in other parts of the world. We are delighted to welcome you to the 8th event of the Marinol Monarch Initiative. The MMI is rooted in the shared vision of the Marinol Sisters and Marinol Lay Missioners. My name is Sister Esperanza Principio, a Marinol sister, and I am joined by my co-coordinator, Dr. Maria Torres. Yesterday, April 22nd, marked 56 years of celebrating Earth Day. U.S. Senator Gaylord Nelson of Wisconsin, moved by the 1969 Santa Barbara oil spill and the surge of student activism, launched a nationwide environmental teach-in, which later became Earth Day, with Congressman Pete McCloskey of California serving as co-chair. As we commemorate Earth Day with this 8th event, Confronting Climate Change, Advocacy for a Planet in Peril, let us pray together as one Earth community. Creator of all life, on this Earth Day, we remember the 1970 movement that awakened us to the harm done to your creation, inspiring us the same courage to resist pollution and degradation. Teach us to care for this planet with love and urgency, and strengthen all who work for justice, sustainability, and the protection of fragile ecosystems. May our small actions join the efforts of millions, becoming a chorus of hope for the earth we share. Amen.
Amen.
We are happy to welcome and introduce our two environmental leaders, both based in the Philippines. The Philippines is one of the world's most climate vulnerable nations, facing severe impacts even as it makes notable efforts in climate mitigation. After the speakers' presentations, Dr. Maria Torres will facilitate the Q&A, followed by a brief evaluation survey and announcements. Today, we are joined by highly qualified speakers who are well educated in this field and actively engaged in this vital work. Sister Marvi Misolas, a Marinol sister, currently serves in the Philippines. She has represented the Marinol sisters at major UN conferences, including Rio Plus 20, the Paris Climate Conference, and the Migration Conference in Marrakesh. She is the Executive Director of the Environmental Studies Institute of Miriam College, focusing on climate change. Our second presenter, Ms. Milagros Serrana. She is the program leader of Ako Ang Bukas. In English, it means I am the future. She's an educator dedicated to raising awareness about environmental issues in the Philippines and globally. She has 30 years of service at Miriam College in roles such as Associate Professor, Biology Department Chair, Graduate Program Assistant Chair, and Academic Council Member. Let us welcome Marvi and Mila or Miles and listen to the best practices they're offering not only for the Philippines, but for the world. Over to you, Marvi.
Thank you. So let me just share my screen for the introduction, SP, and good afternoon or good evening to everybody, or good morning wherever you are. I think Professor Luan is here. It's a good morning. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Okay. Let me just share my screen right now. This is my presentation right now. So because we have been invited to present on some of the climate initiatives here in the Philippines, and I will be talking about the Miriam College Initiative. The Miriam College Initiative is not new. It's not even addressing climate change even before. This is started in 1970s, going to 1986 when it's become publicly available to the people. So I would like to approach my presentation with this outline. I'd like to talk briefly, what's happening right now in the Philippines in terms of climate change and what is the Miriam College response to the climate emergency. And I will be focusing on a nature-based solution, which is really one of the uh, approach that is being used right now by Miriam College in terms of climate action. And I just would like to share a key takeaway, and we will end with a video. Um, this beautiful picture that you're seeing here is from the Marinol Ecological Sanctuary, started by Sister Anne Brodes, Marinol's sister. So I would like to approach this in starting with this picture of Haiyan. Haiyan is one of the super typhoon, that really slammed Philippines in 2013. And, when Pope, came to the Philippines, and after that, Pope Francis, no? And after that, he started to wrote and organize the Laudato Si. So really, how are we gripping with the climate emergency? Filipinos actually, whoever you tell their stories of disasters one after the other. So I would like to just, I think, pause briefly for all of us, to think, how did you experience, before or very recently, uh, the effects of climate disasters? So maybe I could invite one person to just say, or you can also share this on the chat group, no? So for some of us, this is not new. It's almost like the new normal. No? So the climate disasters now, all of us, no countries is spared, of climate impact, climate change impact. So let me just, I think, go to the present climate change situation right now globally. This is what is affecting us right now. So, from the Mauna Loa Observatory, that's being used to measure the carbon footprints, we are now into 429 parts per million, which was, really shooting up, from the 350 that was being proposed, to stay. So we are way up, and it's still increasing. We are also now, as of 2025, the ocean temperature, the global land ocean temperature index has shoot up to 1.19 degrees Celsius. So 2024, 25, and they are also predicting 2026 to be the highest of this event. So these anomalies, these weather anomalies is continuing and becoming, I think, the highest in the decade. Let me go to the Philippines. Right now, climate change, we know that it increased warming, because a lot of the energy that's being received by the Earth is not able to go back to the space, but it's being absorbed. So right now, Philippines is in the forefront of the climate impact, no? So just I was just attending a seminar the other day, and this was what I have gotten from there. I was so shocked because countrywide it's an increase of 0.78 degrees Celsius. So we're already nearing that 1.5, degrees Celsius that we are hoping to stay, so this area was this data was taken from 1991 to 2020. So there's an increase of 0.02 degrees Celsius per year. So you could imagine the increase in temperature for us here in the Philippines. And it's really being felt at the moment, as we speak right now, it's really warm. Okay. So this is also the projection, for the whole Philippines in terms of the increasing number of days of hot weather. And you would see that, the north and the south are the ones that are being affected much. I think um, in terms of the enhancement of climate, of temperature. So as I said, just to kind of give us a roundup of what I was just saying, Philippines is among the world's most vulnerable nation to climate change. We are always on the top three, no? If we're not number one, we're number two or number three. So to give us an example of what is the climate disaster and the risk that the Philippines is facing and already experiences, we have sea level rise, coastal erosion, flooding, intensified tropical cyclones, and extreme drought. And rising urban heat index. This is the topic that I attended the other day, and the disease outbreaks. The rising urban heat index being here in Quezon City is real. We have canceled classes, and this is true also with other parts of the country. While the country has 2030 target of nationally determined contribution, or NDC, to reduce the gases by 75%. This is what we have promised at the COP. 72% is conditional. What does that mean? If we don't get support from outside, from external, we will not be able to, I think, achieve or be able to implement this 75% reduction. High levels of climate anxiety are reported among Filipino youth with fears of future displacement and extreme weather. This is what I would like to, I think, pursue in the next discussion, because we're talking about school, Miriam College, and so according to UNICEF survey, and this was, I think, 2025, Filipino youth, about 26% of Filipino youth see climate change and natural hazards as the biggest futures challenge. So really, I think, oh, sorry about that. The youth they are actually aware, of what is happening, and they're actually facing it now, no? So with this background, the global climate crisis and the Philippines, I would like to introduce the Miriam College office that really sets the action of climate action. So this is Miriam College Environmental Studies Institute, and that's where I am working. I would like to share with you the vision of the office. ESI is actually the advocacy center that stands for the integrity of creation, and it envisions the development of citizens and leaders respectful of the sacredness of creation, who will work for an ecologically sound environment, equitable economic growth, and strengthen people's agency as pillars and movers of sustainable development. That is a mouthful, but I think it's so true, since the inception of ESI way back in the 70s, when the Maryknoll sisters started to ask one of the faculty, Dr. Galang, to teach about pollution, no, and act about, what can we do about it. So that's the birth of ESI, and it's the longest. By now, ESI to 2026, it will be celebrating its 48th year. Okay, so I just to introduce with you the work. This is the place where I'm working right now inside the campus. So Miriam College response to climate emergency now is on climate education, institutional sustainability, and of course, I included here the Laudato Si action plan and the nature-based solution, which we are working on the project. This is all being executed or implemented by ESI. So the topic on ongoing climate education is being carried out through knowledge on environmental principles that is incorporated and taught in the official curriculum from kinder to grade 12. So that holds the vision of ESI in terms of training our young people. When I came to ESI in 2022, I initiated the annual Climate Action Week of Miriam College. It tackles real issues affecting the country and community backed by data and studies. One example of that is we had a forum on sea level rise that focused on the Philippines. We also have been collaborating with students, artists, and other schools, companies, and local communities and governments towards influencing others to amplify the voices of those most vulnerable from climate change. This year, and also from last year when we started institutionalizing the SDGs, we have been looking at the interconnection of our climate actions and the sustainable practices. Being a dark green school, Miriam College is called a dark green school because of its environmental practices. Advocacies on integrity of creation, peace, gender studies, and child rights. These are the four advocacy centers that is tackling all this. So it's all interconnected in terms of SDG. Our approach is whole of country, whole of society, which means collaboration and partnership locally and globally. In terms of Laudato Si in action, I would like to tell you, that we are one of the first 10 cohorts of universities that signed up with the Laudato Si action plan. We have submitted our Laudato Si action plan in 2024. So we institutionalized the 7 goals of Laudato Si by mapping Miriam College practices. So it showed us that Miriam has been, doing a lot of these practices that really summed up in the 7 goals. Also, under my watch of PSI, we really use the integral ecology concept in terms of our existing ecological practices. And of course, this is values guided by spirituality of Miriam College from Miriam of Nazareth, from Mary. So again, that we do not take the spirituality part of our environmental advocacy. We now go into the nature-based solution. This picture here is latest that we had in March. We had a forest conservation youth camp in one of our forest area. So this is also the picture on the right is one of our faculty forest planting. So I just would like to give you a round of summary of what the Empowered Community for the Forest 2 project. That's the existing project right now that we are working. It consists of our partnership with the Department of Environment and Natural Resources for 261.5 hectares. We are just working right now for 3 to 4 years, half of that. So about 133 hectares. And this is what I'm showing right now to you is the four aspects of the project. So it has grow forest, grow livelihood, grow partnership, and grow advocacy. This is a model that is being used right now with our funder, the Forest Foundation Philippines. So um, as of 2024 up to March this year, we have already planted 27,500 Philippine native trees. We are planting it in the protected area, in a watershed area. So I just would like to show you what are the activities or um, other implemented projects that is under the project. So we have we are actually establishing sustainable ecotourism and at least production of tree products, no, and these are all uh, needs assessed before we started it, no. So we have organized in terms of the ECF right now. It's ongoing, the Sanma Multi-Purpose Cooperative. This cooperative is actually going to continue the work of forest conservation when the project is over. So what it is, in terms of the Grow Forest, our link here, towards climate action is the increased biodiversity, increased carbon sink, and resilient watersheds. So it also covers SDG 6, 13, and 15. So now, because we have institutionalized the SDGs, all of our uh, initiatives, is also being measured in the target data of SDGs. So, what the impact of Grow Livelihood here is to really um, increase the food sustainability of the community. We are working into communities right now in the southern Sierra Madre, and of course, one of the Grow Forest initiative impact is to increase resilience to disaster and drought, because this area is a watershed. So we are also working on relieving poverty and equality, because most of the women are the ones who are working on the ECF Sanma Multi-Purpose Cooperative. Under the Grow partnerships, we call on our main campuses stakeholders. So, as you have seen in the picture, the faculty and other companies are helping us. This is in sponsorship, but also in volunteering to plant. So these are all what we have been doing since 2024, when we started the project. Now, in terms of Grow advocacy, the project is also not just working with the grassroots, but harnessing the experience and also the impacts that could really multiply in terms of senior, to train the youth. No? So we have developed with the Department of Education the 10 modules on climate emergency for senior and junior high school. We also have already implemented the Forest Conservation Youth Camp. And for the next, one of this is the Forest Arts Festival, and also learning exchange among the indigenous community. We are working with Dumagat Remontado. So all of them are included in all this four Grow implementation. So what are the key takeaways that I would like to share, in terms of focusing with schools? Um, Schools and other learning institutions are effective centers of climate education and action. Climate mitigation and adaptation must start from the community. So this is really, like a collaboration between government, schools, and the community. Partnership foster collaborations with organizations and private companies to drive conservation. It's actually now one of our law to have companies to have CSR and also ESG, environmental sustainability and governance of their companies. So right now, a lot of companies have approached us if they could partner with us. One example very recently is a company that surveys by a drone. It's drone survey. So to help us monitor the forest cover. So we are exploring that, and we have already did the pilot testing. I think that's all I would like to leave with you. But I would leave with you this uh Earth Month video that we have produced. So I'll play it. I think I might need to share the how do you call it?
Sabi nila, hindi mo mapoprotektahan ang hindi mo kilala.
Can you hear it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's so.
Sa pagsikat ng araw nito, lamat ko ang Sierra Madre ng buhay. Ito ay buhay na dapat mong kami, mga kabataan mula sa Santo Niño, Rizal, ay dumating. Hindi lang para bumisita, kundi para maranasan. Sa Camp Niño, nagsimula ang aming unang hakbang bilang bahagi ng isang layuning mas malaki pa sa aming sarili. Sa bawat hakbang sa trail at aplos sa mga puno, naging totoo ang Sierra Madre sa akin. Nang ito tanawin, ito ay koneksyong nararamdaman ng tao. Dito namin natanto na ang kagubatang ito ang ating pananggalang at buhay. Sila ang ating unang depensa na nagtatanggol sa ating mga komunidad. Dahil sa pagninilay, ang aming boses ay naging layo. Hindi lang kami kinabukasan. Kami ang tagapangalaga ng ating kalikasan ngayon mismo. Ngayong Earth Month, tumatawag ang Sierra Madre sa ating lahat. Hindi natanong kung kailan o kung kikilos ba tayo. Kundi kung handa na ba tayo sabihin ngayon at popo. Ikaw, handa ka ba sa tawag? Sabi nila,
Sorry. So I'll stop my presentation there, and the video that I shared with you was from the March Forest Conservation Youth Camp. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Marvy. And I call on now Miles.
Hi, good day, everyone. It's dawn here in the Philippines at 5. All right, so I will be sharing with you the climate action initiatives of Green Convergence. I will be discussing a little about Green Convergence, and then I will be going into the flagship program right now to address climate change or the global boiling as of June 2023. the Ako Ang Bukas movement is really into quantification of greenhouse gas emissions because we say that what we do not know, we cannot manage. And then we also go into mitigation strategies as we train and as we reach out to communities and various institutions. So may I share with you about green convergence first? So green convergence is short for a long name. It's actually green convergence for safe food, healthy environment, and sustainable economy. So it's working for a development paradigm that addresses the need for social and economic upliftment while preserving life-supporting water, air, and land for generations to come. When I entered Marinol or Miriam College in the late 1980s, I became one of what we call as Nina's Angels. Nina is actually Dr. Angelina Galang, who was the Vice President for Academic Affairs at that time, where she organized the faculty to help out with regards to environmental issues. The organization that she founded first was called Miriam Public Education and Awareness Campaign for the Environment. And we used to give annual forums on environmental issues and how to address them, putting together experts from the academe, from the government, and other organizations. And then eventually it evolved because she said that we should really collaborate and make sure that the other organizations have the same goal as us. So in 2007, she started putting together an alliance which is now known as the Green Convergence. Essentially, it was supposed to address the gaps in the state of nature address of the president because we know she noticed in particular that the environmental issues were never addressed. So it started first with annual state of nature assessment. So the Green Convergence is actually made up of networks, 5 of them. We have the Earth Day Network with us, the Lasallian Institute for the Environment, the Partnership for Clean Air, the Eco Waste Coalition, and even educators, the Philippine Network of Educators on the Environment. We have 21 organizations, including Haribon Foundation and the Pollution Control Association of the Philippines and the Miriam College Association of Retired Employees. And we have academic institutions where Miriam College, ESI, is one of us. And we have also individuals participating. So basically, aside from networks and organizations, we partner with the government. Specifically, the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, and we also partner with the business group, with the first Philippine holdings of the Lopez Group of companies. So we have the support of government, the support of business, and we have the civil society organizations, including the academe, with us, working together. We are into what we call as a awareness campaign. So we incite people through our public forums and we organize them. We invite them to join the Green Convergence. We have also the Ako Ang Bukas movement if they don't want to be formally placed in one organization. And after organizing them, we entice them and we motivate them to act. So we do what we call as climate action. So in essence, it is a whole of nation or society approach. It's multi-sectoral, it's multi-stakeholder. All our programs are like that. So one of our flagship program is the Kamayan for the environment. And we tackle issues, especially concerning climate change. So we are now looking into to the policy of the government to adopt nuclear energy and even the waste to energy technology. And of course, we have our position there. We know that nuclear energy, although they may consider it as a no GHG emission, well, the consequences of having it is a bit risky. And the same is true with the waste to energy. So we tackle these issues. And basically, we are already in our 430th session. It is actually a monthly forum. It's public. It's open to public. It addresses current and urgent environmental concerns, and we come up with solutions. In one of our sessions, we even thought of ensuring that the households with solar panels can actually be charging stations for e-vehicles. We also have the State of Nature Assessment. It's an annual thing. It started in 2006. Initially, it was the venue is at Miriam College, of course, and then eventually we thought of bringing it to the different islands of the country. So we now alternate from Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao, and we look at the different issues in that particular region. So we address development, aggression, and climate change. One of the things that we consider as quite important is for the State of Nature Assessment coming up with resolutions. These resolutions are submitted to the office of the president and the key agencies, key government agencies that could address them. And we are happy to say that they also look into it and they give us feedback and they inform us of updates in how to resolve these issues. We also have the biannual Philippine Environment Summit. If the SONA looks at the challenges or the issues and problems, the Philippine Environment Summit focuses on the positive side. Like we look at scaling up solutions to the climate emergency. And last 2025, we featured the program of Green Convergence, Ako ang Bukas, Quantum Leap to Climate Neutrality. And of course, as what Sister Marby said a while back, the Philippines is already in its fourth year now as being number one in the World Risk Index. We are quite vulnerable and we are quite exposed to climate hazards. The risk is very high with extreme flooding, extreme drought, and of course, we know that there's a lot of issues with regards to the corruption in our country. So in terms of political, socioeconomic, we are at risk aside from really environmentally quite vulnerable to the hazards. And actually in 2013, with the Typhoon Haiyan, we know already that we really need to act fast. Climate action is quite urgent. So in 2020, we launched the Ako ang Bukas movement. It is actually one of the programs of Green Convergence, but we envision it to become a mass movement, to reach a critical mass of people really working towards climate mitigation, adaptation, and resiliency. The call is quantum leap now. We cannot just be doing it slowly. We cannot just doing it on our own. We have to be all together in this endeavor towards climate neutrality 2050. Sister Marby already said that we are at the brink, no? We shouldn't bridge that gap of 1.5 degrees centigrade higher than the pre-industrial level of carbon dioxide or GHG emissions in our environment. It is a whole of nation approach. We have the business, the church, the academe, the grassroots, the indigenous peoples with us, the youth, and the agricultural community. And of course, we have all the public with us. And we have our task force heads for the church, Bishop Alminaza; for the LGU; for business, Piqui Lopez, the head of the First Philippine Holdings and the Energy Development Corporation; from the academe, from IP. All of these people are now heading task forces within their sectors to ensure that the goal of Ako ang Bukas will be achieved. Basically, we want everyone to determine one's carbon footprint. We know that greenhouse gases are the ones that are considered as the culprit in this climate change. It is because of the greenhouse gases not allowing the energy that has been dropped into our earth to go out again. So basically, individual organizations and events through our daily activities emit GHGs, or what we call as carbon dioxide equivalent, every day. And this is measured per year, the carbon footprint. I think you are well aware of the greenhouse gases by now. Are you? Lahat naman tayo. All of us, right? Anyone? May I see a show of hands? So we are actually monitoring these 6 greenhouse gases. The carbon dioxide, of course, it's a lot. It is natural. As we breathe in, we also exhale carbon dioxide. And of course, the methane that are emitted from our waste, especially the organics, the compostables. We have the hydrofluorocarbons from our refrigerants, from our sprayers. Before, we used to use spray nets, right, on our hair, and they have these propellants. And we have the nitrous oxides, basically the perfluorocarbons, and the sulfur hexafluoride, basically in and
Joseph is one. Melvin McDonald, she was at supper.
major.
And there's Maria. She was just
Hi, okay. So basically, these are the gases that propel climate change through global warming because it traps all the heat from the sun. 76% of that are trapped. And we know that these gases have their what we call as global warming potential. And this has been standardized. And using the carbon dioxide as base, the methane is 28 to 36 times more potent. And of course, the sulfur hexafluoride is the highest at 23,500 times. And I showed that because it is how we compute our greenhouse gas emissions. We have the activity data, the daily activities that we do. We look at the coefficient or factor to convert the data activity into GHG emissions data. And we look at the global warming potential, or the ability of the gas to trap heat, and then we have the GHG emissions. And this is just one example. For example, a 1 ton of coal, we know that it emits carbon dioxide, and it emits about 2,602 kilograms of that. So the carbon dioxide equivalent would be the same because it's the base. And then the methane is 28,000 times. So although it's a little bit quite slow, no, in coal, 0.276, it will have this amount, 7.728, and nitrous oxide also. We compute that to have the total emissions of 2,602 carbon dioxide equivalent. By the way, our GHG emissions are in the units of tons for standardization, so 2.62 tons. Why am I saying this? Because as I said a while back, global warming or climate change is actually propelled by the GHG emissions that we emit on our daily activities. And the Ako ang Bukas program would like us to really know our carbon footprint. So we came up with calculators at the personal and household levels, and we also have the entity calculators. All of these were through the help of our business partner, the First Philippine Holdings. It's a bit costly to come up with these calculators. The entity calculators used by offices and by different industrial companies, from manufacturing, energy, construction, logistics, and even agriculture. What are the benefits of calculator? Definitely, it would hasten the calculation or determination, because if you do the computation, as I have shown you a while back, it would take a lot of time, and not all are mathematical experts, and they are basically challenged to do that. So it is actually the basis for climate action. So the GHG, or the carbon footprint, informs us of the level of action that we need to do. It also identifies the emission hotspots for intervention, where specifically is what is the activity that really releases most of your GHGs. And also it prepares organizations basically for government's requirement on GHG accounting, because now businesses are required to monitor their GHG emissions. And even the government is quite conscientious now of really modeling and making sure that the government offices are within the limit to achieve the what we call as the nationally determined contribution of 75%, as what Sister Marby shared a while back. And basically, with knowing our GHG footprint, we can set our GHG reduction targets. Inside the calculator, embedded are the activity data, the emission factors, the global warming. So you just have to input your data, how much are you using for LPG, for example, and then it will already compute. The formula is already embedded there. And this is the access QR code for our household GHG web app. Initially, it was just a template, and then we realized that we have to make it accessible to all. So we came up with a web app through the help again of our business partner. And the calculator will display the GHG anatomy in numbers. So this is just one example of the households that work on it. It will give you the summary, how much is the emission from electricity, from cooking, from waste, and so on. And you will see that the hotspot, or most of the GHG emitted, are from electricity, and basically from electricity, number one. It also gives you a visualized result of your carbon footprint and your total household carbon footprint and per individual. And it will show you how you are vis-a-vis the average Filipino in terms of your carbon footprint. So it also gives you ways by which you can reduce your carbon footprint. It's embedded there. You can just click it. All of this in the calculator, they are given. All right. So in the individual carbon reduction choices, usually we give this in a public forum. So we gave it to the public. Everyone was invited. When we had it at the National Museum of the Philippines, we had two trainings, two seminar workshops there. And we always tell them, after they have known their hotspots, how to lower their carbon emissions. So use less power, cut unnecessary use just enough, all of these, even the food consumption, choosing unprocessed food, eating local, and even trying to organize one's travel route. And of course, definitely how to embark on a lifestyle change. And basically, that's an offset. We need to really plant trees to increase our carbon sinks. We give examples on how on the consequences of transforming or diverting into more environmentally friendly behavior. And the good thing about the web app is it puts together all the data that are submitted, or we know how many are using the calculator. And actually, I put here the Merinol Monarch Initiative. So if you would like to try it out later. So we had actually in MC New Valley during the Advocacy Week, Sister Marvi invited the team, and we were so glad to meet these students and how excited they were in using the web app. So we have the business groups, even the University of the Philippines, Diliman, the business the students were so happy to know it because they can use it in their businesses. Although what we gave them first is the personal calculator, but we also introduced the entity calculator. We have the first gen, which is actually a company which is into energy production. We also have the NEDA, or what we call as the National Economic Development Authority of the Philippines there. Then now the development and the development arm of the country for improving its economy. Even for Philippine women, we have a good list of trainings and seminar workshops where we ask the participants to use it. And actually, after doing it, we always ask them to become a member of the movement by pledging for Quantum Deep now. And if they want to read more about it, we have a primer which they can access online. So far, we have 2021. This was launched only in late 2025, but see, there are already about 2021, and we know the number of trees they need to plant, the average household footprint, the minimum household footprint, and so on and so forth. So basically, it gives us a data, and it would also help the government see whether we are achieving the nationally determined contribution of 75%. The enhanced entity calculator is more segregated into what we call as a scope 1, and scope 2, scope 3. Anyone who knows what scope 1, scope 2, scope 3 is, may I see a show of hands? Okay, so there are those who are saying no, they don't know. So basically, if you look at this, you can see mobile, for scope 1, mobile combustion, etc. Scope 2, purchase electricity. Scope 3, also mobile combustion, but you don't own it. But I will show you more about it. So if scope 1 is anything that you burn, so it's direct emissions. These are directly emitted greenhouse gases as you burn fuel in your activities or from your facilities. Like when you have your own vehicle and you go out, use it. When you have your own generator set, when your aircon, when you use it, the fuel that you use in cooking, and when you are managing your waste, meaning you are treating it. That's scope 1. Scope 2 are the things that we buy. These are indirect emissions, like when we use our electricity, all of this, when we use the electricity for our refrigeration, these are bought. The GHG is generated by the power plants. So basically, you use it in communication and so on, lighting, factory energy. Scope 3 is anything outside of those scope 1 and scope 2. These are indirectly emitted as GHGs as generated before and after your production if you are an entity or a company. So basically for the companies, it is the raw materials, goods, purchase, services, the rented transport, business travel, employee commute, and also the product distribution. So basically outside of your scope 1 and scope 2, and for households, basically the waste that you dump or you give to the dump truck. These are included there in scope 3. So because of our advocacy into carbon footprinting, the Department of Environment and Natural Resources made us their partner in their Project Transform. We are the ones responsible for the GHG emissions community inventory level for the Project Transform. So it was launched in 2023. So it hopes to bolster climate change adaptation, disaster risk reduction, and sustainable environment and natural resources management. We have our pilot project in Ormoc. It is in the Visayas. So it is actually an LGU, the local government unit of Ormoc, the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. The private is the First Philippine Holdings, specifically the Energy Development Corporation of the Lopez Group of Companies, because they have a geothermal plant in the area. And of course, we are the civil society organization. We, as the Akong Bukas, we did the research for them. So we did it to assess the baseline level of emissions that contribute to global warming or climate change of the community. So essentially, we did value analysis of their emissions to identify the emission hotspots, and then knowing their hotspots, we share how the mitigation strategies, how to reduce it, and of course with the participants. And we help the local government develop in the design of their local climate change adaptation plan, because the government requires all LGUs to submit this LCCAP to determine how much they are contributing to the NDC goal of 75% GHG emissions reduction. So with the help of the technical working group in Ormoc, we were able to identify a pilot barangay. The barangay Kugon was chosen because it is representative of the city in terms of its profile. It is residential and it has also commercial entities with 1,505 households, 5,916 in terms of population size, and it has 446 entities. Of course, we had to do sampling. We cannot do all, no? So we did the sampling for the households, about 307 were surveyed, and with the results, we found out that again, the hotspot is the electricity and the waste coming in next. And for the entities, there were 198 entities. Actually, we thought it is in partnership with the local government units. So they have a business processing office. They require all the entities as requesting for licenses to do GHG emissions in accounting for their companies. So we have this, the basic services. We have the schools, the church, medical clinics, the enterprises, including the retail stores, gas stations, condotels, those into food service, and even driving schools and trucking. We have other services, and we have come up with this. We were able to determine the carbon footprint of the households and the entities, and the total greenhouse gas emissions per year of the barangay in tons carbon dioxide equivalent per year. For the business groups, they are now seeking our help. We recently have a training with the Hong Kong Shanghai Bank Corporation. We have of course, the Mega Roja. All of these business groups are coming to us because GHG reporting is now mandatory, standardized, and moving toward independent verification under the Securities and Exchange Commission. And The SEC may now impose administrative fines for incomplete or missing reports, and there are daily penalties for violations, and there is a risk of trading suspension if they don't comply. There are penalties for GHGs that would exceed the allowable for each entity. So we are now helping them, and we have helped them actually consider the decarbonization route. So basically, we have global greenhouse gas emissions at 41.6 billion in 2024. For the Philippines, it's quite low, but as we said, we are most vulnerable. So we really have to help also in lowering our carbon footprint. And the carbon footprint of Philippine entities are supposed to be known, so they are baselining their carbon emissions, and we are hoping the target is reduction by 45% by 2030 and a net zero by 2050. So basically, there is what we call now as a net zero carbon alliance for the business groups, and we are one of their partners. We train the micro, small, medium enterprises. And we tell them that there is what we call as a mitigation hierarchy. The first one is to avoid it as much as possible. We need to conserve. The next one is to minimize and reduce. Looking at the energy efficiency of our gadgets, looking at circular economy, innovating for better energy technology, and innovating for non-fossil fuel technology, so going into renewables. And the last mitigation hierarchy is offset, because looking at the results of the web app on greenhouse gas emissions inventory, you will see that many would require a lot of trees to be planted, and that's quite impossible. So basically, we need to avoid. And we also give them examples of what will happen, the consequences of reducing their GHG emissions. Like shifting from incandescent bulb to LED will be lowering their emissions, no, from what we call as 60 kilowatt hour per year to about this one. And the emissions of their emissions would be very high. We lower it to 30 kilograms carbon dioxide per year. So basically, lowering of your electrical usage, no. If this is your current, if you go into LED, it will be from 30 kilograms carbon dioxide per year to 5 kilograms carbon dioxide per year, from 60 kilowatt hour per year to 10 kilowatt hour per year. So how they can reduce just by changing into LED bulb, from incandescent to LED bulb, and also from fossil energy to renewable energy, they can save a lot. No, from 324 tons carbon dioxide equivalent per year, they can only emit this one, from 30 tons carbon dioxide equivalent per year, and that would be a lot of savings, from 845,000 to only 78,300 in terms of payment for their electricity bill. And we always say carbon offset is the last resort. We are more into nature-based solutions, sequestration. So we are into afforestation, just like what Sister Marby's group is doing. We are into coastland, wetland protection, restoration, forest. By the way, whenever we have an event, we compute the carbon footprint, and we offset that by planting mangroves or trees. We always have that in all our events. And of course, there is man-made carbon capture, but we are more into long-term. nature-based solutions. And we know that now that mangroves, or known as the blue carbon, actually holds 3 to 4 times more carbon per hectare than tropical forests. And we are now taking care of our salt marshes because they can sequester 43 to 55 times faster than terrestrial forests. And I would like to end here with just like what Sister Marby did, with a short video.
By now, the whole world knows about climate change. Everyone knows that the Earth is heating and heating up. Because of the familiarity, we might be lulled into taking all these disasters for granted. And if we do, it is predicted that our life support systems will collapse in the middle of the century. It calculated that if we are not to go beyond this temperature rise, the world must be carbon neutral by 2050. How is the world responding? The UN asked its member countries to do their part to calculate its nationally determined contributions to climate and to take steps to lower it. But it is the actions of each of us as individuals and groups that make up the sum of our country's contribution to climate. Thus, in 2020, after consultations among civil society groups, the Ako ang Bukas was born. At the heart of the movement is a campaign to lower our respective carbon footprint and then, knowing the numbers, take steps to lower it so that our country will be carbon neutral by 2050. The Advisory Council of Ako ang Bukas enjoins everyone to carbon neutrality in 2050.
Climate neutrality by 2050.
Climate neutral Pilipinas by 2050.
Climate neutrality 2050.
So do Ako ang Bukas champions.
I will fast forward because I'm already late. Beyond my time allotment.
Well,
For Mok, one of our champions, Mickey Lopez. The first one was Howie Severino, a journalist. We have also attorney Oposi. And we have Senator Ligarda with us joining. And of course, the different hosts of television. We always end our events with this, with the shouting of the Ako ang bukas, I am the future. Ikaw ang bukas, you are the future. Tayo ang bukas, we are the future. So essentially becoming part of the Ako ang bukas movement. So I will end here. Okay. Okay. So join us, Ako ang Bukas movement. I hope you will have the same movement in your countries. And we always ask our participants whenever we have trainings and seminar workshop to join the movement and to calculate their carbon footprint. And this is our office address. With that, thank you very much for allowing us to share our climate actions. Thank you.